Hey guys, welcome to the Previa Alliance podcast. This is Sarah.
And Whitney.
Okay, guys, you guys asked, or we asked you, I should say, of what topics you wanted to hear in swim and swim safety. And what is ISR was a topic that we kept hearing. So we have brought you ISR, swim safety, one of my good friends, Ashley, and she is here with us today. Ashley, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Can you tell our listeners a little about yourself?
Sure. I'm a mom. I have a 5-year-old son who is a great swimmer now, and I'm an ISR instructor. I started off coaching and sort of how I got into the aquatic world. So sort of on the other side of what I'm doing now. And really when I had my son, got into aquatic safety because it's so important and people don't talk about it enough. And that's what led me to become a certified ISR instructor. And so now I teach babies how to swim.
Love that.
Great.
Yeah.
You know, prepping for this, I always like to look up some statistics. That's my little
That's what you do.
that's what I do. And I did not realize this, but it said more children ages 1 to 4 die from drowning than any other cause of death. 5 to 14, it's the second leading cause of unintentional injury or death after motor vehicle crashes. And there's an average of 11 drownings deaths per day, and then 22 non-fatal drownings per day, which I'm like, oh my gosh. And it just, I think we hear about it, like the horrible, tragic stories, right? And it's like it flashes up on the news. We all get kind of just like, oh my gosh, we got to do something about this. And just like anything, because there's been a lot of scary stuff in the world recently, we kind of just go about our day and we're like, okay, let's make this a thing we do with our kids, or I'll sign them up eventually. But our hope here in talking to you is just really bring to light what moms can do, right? Or parents, for say, that we can do.
Yeah.
So let's start off with what, in your opinion, is the top safety precautions parents can take against drowning?
Yeah. So first off, I want to say, yes, I'm so glad you guys are doing this because this is such an important topic and people don't realize that it happens all the time. And to good parents, these are not parents who are not watching their kids. They are good parents just like you and I, and it can happen to anyone. And so everybody needs to take precautions for this and needs to make aquatic safety a priority. So when we're talking about safety, we always talk about layers of protection. So there's not one thing you need to do. There's lots of different things you need to do. Of course, I teach survival swim lessons, ISR swim lessons. That is a layer of protection. We want that to be the last sort of thing that happens. We want a child getting to the water and falling in to be the last thing. That we want them to get through all the other barriers first. So first off, obviously, the most important is effective supervision. You know, it's so easy. I mean, we all do it. We start talking to each other and then we just turn away for 1 minute, or we're distracted by another child. And that can be the time when the child goes in. It can be a time when you're not swimming, which most drownings happen when you're not actually swimming at the pool. So that's why it's so important, if there's a pool around, to have that effective adult supervision. CPR is another one. A lot of the times, I think when you have a baby, or at least I know when I had my son, they sort of told us we should get the infant CPR thing. It's just an important thing to know that if an emergency ever does happen, that you're ready and prepared. So keep that up to date. Alarms are big. So alarms on any door that leads to a pool. So if you have a pool at home, any doors that lead to a pool need to have an alarm on them. And then including doggy doors. This is another big one people don't think about, but if you have a doggy door, kids can get through there. So make sure you have an alarm on that doggy door. I think you can get little necklaces that are censored that it only opens when the dog goes through.
That's a great point. That wasn't on my radar at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big one people don't think about, but it has happened before where a kid has gotten through a doggy door and unfortunately has drowned. And pool fences is another big one. If you have a pool, make sure there is a fence around the pool and with a self-latching lock. You can also put another alarm on that gate as well. We just don't want those kids getting in there. Make sure you put all your toys away in a pool. So that's another thing. I mean, we know kids, they love their toys. And if they see something in the fence that they want, they're going to do everything they can to get over that fence and reach towards that toy. So yeah, I mean, those are sort of the main things that you need to have set in place. You know, if you have a pool, if you don't have a pool, make sure you're going to places that a fence is around the pool. You know, if you're renting a vacation home, don't rent a vacation home if your child is not prepared, you know, because stuff happens on vacations, you know. So
Well, and we can't, I guess, be in control of the fence around the pool and the alarms and things like that. So that's a good point of if you're going on vacation and there's a pool at that house, make sure your kids are ready to be in a pool, that they can get their head above water, literally.
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
What do you see as like the most common pitfalls? You know, like you see even as like a mom when you and Bishop go out and like you're at the pool or it's a pool party, or like you see just every day that, you know, we just don't realize that we're doing that's putting our child essentially at risk for drowning. Like the most common kind of like, oh, let's not do that. Like the doggy door. That was huge for me. I didn't know about that.
Light bulb
Yeah.
moment for me.
Yeah. I mean, I would say besides all the layers of protection, obviously, but I think a big thing that makes me cringe when I go to our pool and I see this is any sort of flotation devices. So the puddle jumpers that, you know, everybody thinks is safe, is keeping their child safe. It's actually putting your child more at risk. What these cause our children to do is to think that if they're in a vertical position, because that's what position they are in these puddle jumpers, that they can get air. And they can't. If they do not have these on, they will get in that vertical position because that's what they have been trained to do. These are not swimming aids. They do not teach our kids how to swim. So if they find the water without their puddle jumper, which once again, like I said, most drownings happen during non-swim hours, the puddle jumpers will make them think they need to get in a vertical position to get air. And that is what we call the drowning position. Little kids do not have the strength or the ability to tread water. And so what they need to do in order to get air is to roll on their back. And that's what we teach them in ISR lessons, or part of what we teach them. And the puddle jumpers are just, you know, they might keep your child from, you know, during regular swim hours. I know you don't have to watch them, you know, it's just easier, especially when you have multiple children. Like I get that. It's tough sometimes, but it's important not for the kids to know that they cannot swim without these puddle jumpers. And the only way that they learn that is by not having them on. So that's just one thing that makes me cringe. And, you know, parents think they're doing the right thing. And, you know, we always say, you know better, you do better, right? Like if you don't know, you don't know. You're doing what you think is best for your child. And until somebody tells you otherwise, you know, you do it. So
I'm really glad you hit on this, because that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask was, you know, I've seen the graphics online about puddle jumpers and how it is honestly detrimental to kids. But my next question with that would be, what about a life vest? Because I grew up going to lakes, rivers, things of that nature, and we were not allowed on the boat without our life vest. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I'm very glad you brought that up. And I should have mentioned that when I was talking about that. When I'm talking about the puddle jumpers and any flotation device, I'm talking about a pool only. When you're on a boat, when you're in open water, murky water, you know how lakes are, 100% wear a life vest. And if you buy the right type of life vest, you can actually go on your back. So they will, you know, it forces you to go on your back almost. So, you know, those are good. And we always say, if you're a big boat person and you're on the boat all the time in those life jackets and everything, make sure you're taking them to the pool too, without any flotation devices on. So you can sort of counteract that as much as you can, just so they realize that when they don't have their life vest on, when they don't have that, that they cannot swim. So
my next question with that was, if you're going to the beach or something like that, because we did that last summer, and my poor oldest one, we had to skip a few years of swim lessons because of COVID. So we had just gotten her started back into swim lessons last year, and we went to the beach, and I still made her wear her life vest because I thought, what if there's like an undertow or current, things like that. And you would have thought I was the crazy parent because my child was the only one in the life vest.
Right. Yeah, no, it's important because even if you think, okay, they're scared of the ocean, they're not going to get in, you just never know. I mean, sometimes the ocean's crazy. You can be
She loved the ocean. That was the scary
yeah, right. And if they love the ocean, even more of a reason to put it on because they're just going to go in. But I mean, you can be in 6 inches of water and then all of a sudden it's 2 feet and it's covering up the kid's head. And
so
they're
life
not
vests for natural waters, and then no life vest for a pool.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the moms out there, they're like, okay, what do I do? Right? I haven't got my kid in swim lessons. We're going to these parties. We're going to pool parties, or, it's in the neighborhood, or I have, my kid doesn't know how to swim. They're younger. What can I do? Like, let's role play. We're going to a pool party. We're going to a neighborhood pool. We're not doing the floaties. What can we do as a parent that we're going to be like, what's our game plan here?
Yeah. So I would say, first off, you need to have somebody that's watching the pool. And when I say watching the pool, that doesn't mean, there's a bunch of adults standing around the pool and you're all talking. And we always say if everyone is watching the pool, no one's watching the pool, right? You get distracted, you get in conversations. It literally happens to all of us. And so in that 5 seconds, you're not paying attention to your child and not constantly watching them. It can happen. I'd like to say those drowning statistics, that's not even counting. So it's the leading cause of death, but that's not even counting all the non-fatal drownings.
Right.
So when you add those in, I mean, it happens so quickly. But yeah, so I would say if there's not a lifeguard there, and even if there is a lifeguard there, it's still better just to tag team with your husband, with your partner, with another parent, and just say, you're responsible for watching the pool now. That person should not be talking to anyone else. They are literally watching the kids and making sure they're all safe, making sure no one who shouldn't be in the water falls in, anything like that. And just take turns doing that. And, I know it's hard at parties because you're having fun, you want to talk, but you really have to take that time when it's your responsibility to watch the water, that you are watching the water. And also to keep in mind, even like, so you're at a birthday party or, a pool party even, and there's pizza comes and everybody goes to the table and is eating pizza. That is the perfect time, like I said, during non-swim hours, that a child is going to find the water. So somebody should be watching the water even during that time.
Yes, absolutely. What about, what do you dress your son in when you're going to the pool or pool party? What do you do? I know, is there probably some tips and tricks there that a swim instructor, safety ISR would do for, like you would do for Bishop versus, a mom who wouldn't know. So what would you do to prep him?
Yeah. So, I mean, number one, talk to him, and let him know. I mean, my son is fully skilled. He's on the swim team now, but even still, I still watch him like a hawk in the water. He's still only 5, So one thing that is important to do is to have your child in brightly colored swimsuits. So there's pictures out there about it, and the pictures really, you can see how this, the difference. Colors, cool colors that are same color as the pool, blue, green, light greens, things like that. When a child is underwater and has those swimsuits on, they're much harder to spot. If you're just doing a quick scan of the pool, you might not even see that a child's underwater if they have on those watercolor suits. So we recommend brightly colored suits. Anything on the warm side, neon colors are best. So bright pinks, bright oranges, bright, neon greens, anything that is brightly colored. When you do that quick scan, you're immediately going to see that child if they're underneath the water and need help, because drowning is silent. So a child, you think they're going to be splashing around, help, not even screaming, but just splashing around. That just does not happen. They just sink. It's silent. You don't even know. So
that's so important. I'm glad you said that. Is like, just like you said, so drowning does not look like what we think drowning as an adult looks like for a child.
It doesn't look like what movies and TV would portray it to be. It's just like you mentioned, they can kind of slip, and it's very subtle.
So do they kind of just, so what do you typically see as, like, if as first catch, if you're scanning a pool for a kid in trouble, what is the first thing that you would recognize instantly? Obviously, then if they're not like underwater and unresponsive, but like what's the stages of like seeing them and being like, you got to intervene now?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say if a child's not moving, obviously, if it's a young child that you know can't swim, and I mean, that's really it, because I mean, they're going to go underwater and be in that vertical position if they're not skilled, or if they've been in puddle jumpers before. So I mean, yeah, you're just looking for
Goes quick.
that. Yeah.
Like seconds.
Yeah. It's very, very quick. Mhm.
Okay.
I think if a child can go unconscious, and I believe it's 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So it's very, very
That's
fast.
quick.
That's scary, because you think, especially just in this day and age, a person can pick up their phone and scroll for 2 minutes quickly, and in that amount of time where someone takes their eyes off the pool, tragedy can happen.
And that's the thing we say all the time. It's just, I mean, it should be a personal rule. If you're that person watching, you're not on your phone. You're not on Instagram. You're not listening to anything.
Your eyes are glued to the pool.
You know, if you have to be rude to the person next to you and be like, I'm eyes on the pool right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And some people will even, I forget the program that it's called, but there's like you can wear a lanyard that has a badge on it, and you
Oh, I
sort
like
of
that.
switch off. So it's a tangible way for people to know, number one, you're
Identify.
watching the pool. I think it's called Pool Watcher. And then, you know, for you to know, okay, I have this on. I don't know. There's just something about
This is my identity now.
Yes, exactly. This is my time. So,
And I like how we are a pool watcher, not a kid watcher, because
Mhm.
I know, like, I'm going to keep my eyes on my kids.
Right.
But if I'm actually the pool watcher, I'm keeping my eyes on the pool. That way, if I have my eyes on just my kid, I could ignore somebody else's kid and they could be the ones to get in trouble. But if I'm watching the pool, I got everybody covered.
And it's just a job role. We all like take a better, approach
yeah.
if someone's like, tag, you're it, essentially.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess this is a great time to bring up, how is ISR different from traditional swim classes?
Yeah, so it's very different. And I feel like I know the differences firsthand, because I came from, like I said, I was a swim coach, but also taught traditional lessons. So I very much know the difference, and it is hands down so different. The purpose of ISR lessons is survival swim lessons. So if a child reaches the water by themselves, that they are able to self-rescue. The purpose of traditional swim lessons could be to learn strokes, right? Traditional swim lessons still have their place when children get older, but to learn strokes, you're not necessarily, when they're young and they're taking, like 5 and under, they're not necessarily learning strokes in traditional swim lessons. You're practicing putting your face in the water, you're practicing kicking, but being comfortable putting your face in the water is not going to allow you to survive. In traditional swim lessons, you might sign up for a couple months once a week. At the end of that, they might move up another level, but they're still not safe. So it can go on forever. Sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years for a child to be safe. Whereas ISR is much more condensed. It's every day, Monday through Friday, for approximately 6 weeks, 7 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks. But at the end of that session, your child will be able to self-rescue. And that is the biggest difference, the biggest important difference, I think. ISR is huge. It's been around for almost 60 years. We have 600 instructors in over 17 countries. We go through intense training. And this is the thing, with traditional swim lessons, there's some training programs out there, but most traditional swim lesson instructors just know from doing, there's no parameters or guidelines around it. Anybody can teach traditional swim lessons. To be an instructor, you have to go through 6 weeks of full-time training. So that's in water, includes in-water training with children, and then also out-of-water training, academics. So we learn so much. And coming from the traditional world, I was like, what? How is this going to be 6 weeks, like this training? Like I was just, but there is so much you don't think about. I mean, we learn so much about safety. We learn so much. And that's another thing. ISR is really, really big on safety. I mean, obviously we're working with young kids starting at 6 months, and really, really big on safety. We have a very number of safety precautions we have to go through during each lesson, things we have to look out for. So that is like our number one priority is safety, obviously. But safety during the lessons too. We want the kids to learn to be able to self-rescue in a safe environment.
And so when you say self-rescue, so essentially if they fall into a body of water or pool or whatever, they will float, right? not drown.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So what we're teaching them to do is, so for children ages 6 months to approximately a year, we can place them in any position. When they're fully skilled, we'll place them face down in the water. They can roll over on their back and float. And so they're trained to float on their back and stay in that position until help arrives. At that age, they're not able, they don't have the strength to go and grab the side of the wall, but they can roll over on their back and stay there until help arrives. And then once approximately a year to, whatever age, then we start teaching them to swim a little bit, roll over on their back and float, and then turn back over on their stomach and swim. And so they can keep doing that until they get to the wall or safety. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Definitely go to infantswim.com and look at the videos, because it'll blow your mind. I mean, teaching traditional swim lessons, when I started researching ISR, I mean, I was blown away, and I get with that all the time. So it's amazing what these little kids can do.
I think it's just a lot of comfort of knowing that they can, both my boys they went through swim. It wasn't a formal ISR, but it was ISR approach with it. It was a unique way, but they both essentially can do that. And that was important. What our swim instructor always said was they have to learn how to float and, be confident floating. And then like Will obviously he's a full swimmer now, but James, that's, and I think when you have multiple kids and like you have one at one level and other, it's even scarier to me sometimes. And then like pool parties, I've noticed even with Will, I have to be even more alert. Is it because I think sometimes you think, oh, my kid's X amount of age, I'm okay. But like they are doing unsafe things in the pool when they get together, they're friends and they're all just chaotic and jumping and they can like land on each other, right? And like can't get out from under. Yeah. So it gives me a lot of comfort to know that for my kids. I mean, it doesn't give me an excuse to check out, right? I can't be like, oh, they can float, I can check out. But so the time commitment, you said 6 weeks?
Yes. So approximately 6 weeks. The babies are typically a little bit shorter, 4 to 5 weeks. And then the, over one swim, float, swim swimmer will be approximately 6 to 7 weeks.
And how long are each session?
Lessons are Monday through Friday in 10 minutes every day. So that's another thing that's different with younger kids. Short, consistent lessons are best, especially with the really young ones. I mean, it's hard work what we're asking them to do. So we don't want them to become fatigued. Obviously, attention span is another thing. We want to just get those good 10 minutes in just very consistently, and it makes such a big difference.
Repetition is key.
Okay, so what do you tell the mom? And she's like, is the baby going to cry?
Yes. So this is a very good question, and one that we get a lot, and a very good question, because I know it's hard, like you think about like your baby, like being, face down in the water. It's a hard thing to watch. So we are very open and honest with our parents. A child is probably going to cry, especially the younger ones, the first couple weeks of lessons. A lot of them are at that stage also where just being away from mommy, they're going to cry. It's not even that they're in a pool. They don't know us. So they're getting used to us and learning who we are. So we have to develop that relationship with them until they're comfortable with us. So that's part of it. The other thing is we're asking them to do things that are new to them and hard, and, they don't want to do them, but we know it's important for them to do. And so typically when the kids get to know us better, we build that relationship and become comfortable in what we're asking them to do and confident, then the crying stops and they just have a blast and have so much fun. So I know it's hard to watch. We always tell our parents, they feed off of us. So if they're crying, just encourage them, smile at them. I know it's hard not to be the one as a mom, the one cuddling them when they cry. You just immediately want to cuddle them and comfort them. And, you can't do that. So, or during lessons, so just, you have to be strong, mamas, be strong. I know it's tough,
This too
but
will pass.
Yeah, it's so important. You're doing the right thing for them. And we always compare it to things like a car seat. How many of our kids have cried in the car seat and won out?
James Staley.
I was about to
Yeah,
say it's a
exactly. But are you going to take him out?
Yeah, yeah.
No. You know, the safest thing is for him to be in that car seat. And so that is what we sort of compare it to. It's like swim lessons or ISR lessons, they're going to cry that first little bit. And you just have to be strong and know you are doing the best thing for them.
I love that. So how does someone find an ISR trained instructor? So where's the best way for them to Google or to search and hit on? Some people are like, what's the cost? What's if I don't have the means? What are their options there too?
Yeah, so you can go to Google infant ISR locator, infant swim instructor locator. You can go to infantswim.com and there's the instructor locator at the top, but you can Google any of those things and will come up. So when you Google that, you can just type in your zip code and it'll give the instructors that are closest to you. One thing to note, if you find a website and it's ISR or somebody says it's ISR, just make sure that the email that the instructor is emailing from it'll be at infantswim.com. So that's sort of how to know. We all have that last E. If they are a certified trained ISR instructor, they will have that last part to their email address.
Good to know.
Yeah.
They're legit.
So, yes, exactly. Yeah. And because there's a lot of other survival swim lessons out there. Some are better than others. I think ISR, like I said, with the training, the safety protocols, not all other survival swim lessons have that. So it's a good thing to look out for and make sure that they have that. But yeah, so ISR, the cost is going to vary by instructor, right? Where you live, how much the instructor is paying for a pool, things like that. But I know it's a lot, traditional swim lessons. We honestly spend as much on traditional swim lessons, but it's just spread out over those 2 to 3 years that it takes them to learn. And so with ISR being very intense, it can be a big upfront payment. So save for it. If you can make it happen, do it. It is an investment. It's something that's important. If you really can, and there are, so many people who can't, but it's still important, right? There are so many scholarships out there for ISR lessons. A lot of instructors, the first year we come out of training, we have to do 10 free lessons, or maybe just 2 years. We call it our pay it forward program. Basically, we as instructors don't pay as much for training, so that in exchange, we agree to do 10 scholarship ISR lessons. So that is one way. There's also lots of other drowning prevention programs. And, most of the times this stems from a child who has drowned, and their parents, in order to honor their memory, they create these scholarships for ISR lessons. So yeah, there's lots of those out there, and I can provide a list to you, Sarah, and you can
link it.
Yeah. And you know what? And if you can't find any of that, if all else fails, like ask the instructor, tell them that, you really want ISR lessons and you just really can't afford it for whatever reason. And they might give you a scholarship, even if they're not required to as part of the pay it forward program. Maybe they'll give you a discount,
Payment plan kind of thing.
Something.
Yeah, exactly. A payment plan. Yeah. So all ISR instructors, we have to make a living doing this, but we very much, our main goal and why we're doing this, we are driven by this drowning prevention and helping keep kids safe. So there's lots of ways you can make it happen. It just might require a little bit of research.
To our pregnant moms, you know what? People do they register for they want certain things.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you put that on your baby registry if you knew this is
Right,
something, right?
yeah.
Have your bunch of friends donate to that, use that money
Absolutely.
for that.
Yeah.
Go ahead now, make decisions that,
And put it in an account. Maybe it can grow with some
Right.
interest, something like
because
that.
baby registries, they can be for forever for what you really need. It doesn't just have to be the newborn stage, right?
Right, exactly.
Think ahead.
Yeah.
So I think that's a helpful tip.
Yeah.
Okay, Ashley, we know you got to get back to your ISR lessons, but we want to we ask all our guests this question. What is one thing that you wish someone would have told you about motherhood before you became a mom?
So I thought about this. And so this is straying away from ISR lessons.
Totally
and,
fine.
Maybe a little different than what you asked, but I would say the number one thing I wish someone had told me is to freeze my eggs if I was 30 years old and was not going to have babies soon. because infertility, that's obviously a whole nother thing that I don't know if you guys talk about, but no one ever told me at 30 that you just didn't realize it was a thing. And so I had kids a little bit later in life, and it was much more difficult. And, you can freeze your eggs, then you can have a baby later, so
make the process somewhat easier and less taxing.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you have a, I know a personal story I know, and I've got to be aware of, and I would love for you one day, if you want to ever share with our listeners, I think you could bring, besides the ISR hat, you could bring just the mom, Ashley, lived it experience to us. So we'd welcome you anytime if you want to do that.
Definitely. Love to.
Well, Ashley, you're a pleasure as always. We appreciate what you're doing. We try to just to get this out to our listeners is, we had a guest tell us once, sometimes you don't have a village, so we have to make our village. Moms in this space are trying to make a difference. So we really appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, girls.
Bye. Maternal mental health is as important as physical health. The Previa Alliance podcast was created for and by moms dealing with postpartum depression and all its variables like anxiety, anger, and even apathy. Hosted by CEO, founder Sarah Parkhurst, and licensed clinical social worker Whitney Gay, each episode focuses on specific issues relevant to pregnancy and postpartum. Join us and hear how other moms have overcome mental health challenges, as well as access tips and suggestions on dealing with your own challenges as moms. You can also browse our podcast library and listen to previous episodes at any time. Please know you're not alone on this journey. We're here to help.